part 2. So, if you are watching this, you are watching part 2. If you have not watched part 1 yet, you should go watch part 1 and then come back and watch part 2. Okay, sorry, I'm in a really weird mood. Don't ask. Anyway, so last time I talked about, just the process of getting to the interview and basic preparation for the interview. So now I'm going to explain my interview and give you an idea of some of the questions that I was asked, and also give you some questions that other people that I talked to were asked. When you get into the interview, after you've been waiting for a long time, well, maybe not a long time, but after you've been waiting, you'll get to the interview, you'll be taken to a separate room. And in this room, there are 3 interviewers. Okay, there are two former jets, or there's one former jet usually and one other person with the jet program, but for me, I had 2 former jets. So I had 2 former jets and then a Japanese person of some standing. But you'll have a Japanese person and 2 Americans. Now, everybody I talked to said one of the people in the interview were kind of strict, kind of serious face, kind of mean. But, yeah, I had one of the jet people. Anything I said, the other people would laugh, and the one guy would just be like. So it was kind of discouraging, but I think that's what it was meant to be. But anyway, so you'll have 3 people. One of them will be serious, one of them will be Japanese, and one of them will be really sweet. And usually it's the really sweet one that'll come and bring you from the interview or the waiting room to the interview room. So that's what happened. So you get to the interview room and they'll ask you questions. Now, these are some of the questions I got asked. Of course, the first and foremost, the most obvious, the most predictable question you will be asked, why do you want to be on the JET program? Why? That is such an obvious question that they will ask. Every employer you'll ever interview will ask you that. Why do you want to be with this company? JET program is no exception. They'll probably ask you, why do you want to be with JET? What made you want to choose JET? So they asked me, and I responded, give your real reason, be as honest as you want. So other than that, my interview was a little bit different. Of course, you'll hear this over and over. Every situation is different. Interview is no different. The interview is the same as everything with the JET program. Every situation is different. So my situation, I taught for 2 years with a tutoring program, a private tutoring program, before I applied for the JET program. I worked at summer camp twice. I did a lot of teaching, and English was my second major. So, and the second part that makes my interview kind of interesting is I lived in Okinawa for 4 years when I was 6 years old. So from when I was 6 to when I was 10, I lived in Okinawa with my parents at Kadena Air Force Base. So, those things make my interview a little special. So, of course, one of the questions they asked me was, what is my most vivid memory of Okinawa? And it was when I begged my mom for a popsicle, and she told me I had to eat it all if I got it. And it turned out to be sushi on a stick, surrounded by lemon ice. I was 6 years old, eating a fish that was raw. I was not an excited little kid. I did not eat sushi again until I was in college. Yeah, so fun story. Anyway, so top memory of Okinawa was one of them. Another one that I was asked was, what do I teach my children now, my students now? What do I teach them? So what levels do I teach now? I teach high school and middle school. Okay, well, what do you teach them? How do you teach your high schoolers? How do you teach your middle schoolers? What do you teach them exactly? And, it was actually pretty relevant because I taught them phonics. I taught them grammar. I taught them writing. So, I basically told that. And after that, there was a follow-up question of what level do I want to teach? Since I have all this teaching experience with all these different levels, what level would I want to teach? And of course, you know, you have to be flexible. You can't say, well, I will only teach elementary schoolers. So I was like, you know, I will teach any level. If I get to go to Japan, I will teach any level you want me to teach. I could teach high schoolers. I have experience with them. I have a lot of experience recently with middle school and elementary schoolers. You know, I could teach any level you want me to teach. So that was that. One that was asked, I heard a lot of people talking about, was what are 3 things you'll bring with you to Japan that represent your country? What are 3 things that you bring with you to Japan that will represent your country? So think of any 3 things. I mean, prepare for it. You know, I said movies, pictures, and I don't remember the third one. I have no idea what the third one was. That was a long time ago. A year is a long time. Anyway, so 3 things you'll bring with you that represent your country or your region or your state, you know, anything like that. The only other thing I can remember, from what I hear, they try and put in one little thing that maybe might trip you up. I mean, they're not trying to trap you in any way. They're just trying to see how well you work under pressure. And my particular incident was the Japanese man had asked a question. And he said something along the lines of, someone asks you about Japan, how would you call? And that's basically exactly what he said. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And, you know, I don't want to tell him, you know, your sentence doesn't make any sense. So, you know, I tried to be as gentle as I can. I'm like, I don't think I quite understand the question. You know, trying to be, you know, as nice as I can and sound, you know, as honest as I can, and the poor little Japanese man kind of looks at the other interviewers, and finally we figured out he was basically trying to ask, you know, what would I show them, how would I introduce them to the culture of Okinawa, you know, what would I tell them to go see, and everything like that, or how would I advise them. So, you know, after, you know, we situated that out, you know, we kind of, I was able to answer it fine, but it just really threw me up, and I didn't want to say anything to offend him because these people are deciding my future. So I was like, I don't understand the question. But at the end of the interview, he was like, I'm sorry, my English is so bad. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad. I was like, oh no, your English is wonderful. I'm sorry I didn't understand. That's my fault. I was like, I'm so sorry. I felt horrible. Absolutely terrible. Those are the questions I got asked. Some of the other questions that were asked were name 5 famous Japanese people, name the current emperor and prime minister of Japan, what are some current news events in Japan, you know, basically trying to see how much interest you actually have in Japan. One of my friends took Japanese for a while, and they asked her in Japanese what are current news events in Japan, and asked her to respond in Japanese. And she had not studied Japanese for a few years, so she wasn't comfortable answering in Japanese, and she just said, you know, I don't think I can answer in Japanese, but I can answer the question. And she was able to answer the question, and she did end up getting in the program and is now in Niigata. I am overtime, and this will be part 2, and I'm not going to make a third part. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Please, you know, do your research. There's so much out there, and you could get so much help if you just look. Again, check out Jason's channel, My Argonauts. I'll put the link again in here, and again, I have no idea if I'm pointing the right way, but I'll put the link in here, and, you know, look at his videos. They help me out so much, and I know they'll help you too. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and good luck. Thanks for watching. Peace.